And the worst part is my mom blames herself and she says that it happened because she didn't pray hard enough. You're telling me, you worship God and God promises you He's going to look out for you, but you did pray, but you just didn't pray hard enough, and that's why your son died.
Welcome to Voices of Deconversion. We share the inspirational stories of deconversion told by former Christians who are now atheist or agnostic. Our stories remind us we're in it together. They encourage us as we discover who we are and help us to embrace who we become. Now here's Steve with today's guest.
I'd like to welcome everybody back for this week's episode. My guest today used to co-run one of the biggest flying spaghetti monster pages on Facebook, and is currently co-running the Nigerian atheist agnostic movement page, also on Facebook. She began her journey away from religion when she was 18, after moving away from her devout Christian parents. I'm very happy today to be joined by Vix. Vix, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm curious to find out just right off the bat, how long has Nigerian Atheists, the group, been around?
I think about 3 to 4 years.
Okay, so really recently.
Yeah,
wow.
Recently.
That's cool. And how big is the group?
Right now we have about 300 to 400 likes. I think maybe, 300 to 400. And honestly, I think that's a lot to get in Nigeria.
That's a lot, you think? Because of how religious the country is?
Yes, it's very religious.
Oh, that's cool. Well, I was really excited to find the group. I had no clue, like I was telling you before we jumped on the call. I had no idea that a group like that would even exist in Nigeria, so that's pretty neat. Well, let's go ahead and just start with, I guess, how you identify yourself. Do you identify as an atheist, agnostic?
I think for me, definitely agnostic, and the reason is because I feel like I can't prove that there is no God. When I say God, I don't mean the Christian God or Muhammad, whatever. To me, God is what made something to be. So since I can't prove there is no God, I go by agnostic. But I am atheist towards specific gods. Like I'm atheist towards the Christian God, I'm atheist towards the Muslim God, but in general, I'm agnostic.
I like that answer.
Thank you.
It's good because it's like you probably know a lot about, based on where you grew up, the Christian God, the Muslim God, and you know enough about them to know, they're not real.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. Well, tell me about your kind of growing up. So in what ways was Christianity a part of your childhood, and how did it influence you as you grew up?
It was everything, because my parents were one of those people who were like, oh yeah, Christianity is not a religion, it's a lifestyle. So pretty much everything we did was dictated by religion. Luckily, we're more New Testament kind of Christians, not the crazy Old Testament stuff. But even then, going to church, going to Bible school, going to, entire Sundays was just church. You get there at 9, you leave by maybe 4, if you're lucky. So it was really central. Wow. Growing up. Easter, Christmas, very religious.
So tell me about your parents. They were very devout, you said?
They were very devout. They're actually less devout now, which I think is really fantastic. But I guess being in that environment in Nigeria, because I like to tell people in Nigeria, sometimes it feels like the worst thing you can be is atheist. Be Christian, be Muslim, worship the devil, just don't be atheist. So now that they've left that, the pressure of always being in the church and everything, they're less devout.
And are they still in Nigeria?
No, they're in Qatar now.
Okay, so they moved.
Yeah, they moved.
Wait, you said, before we jumped on, and I'm jumping ahead for people who are listening, but you said you moved from Nigeria to Qatar, so you probably were with them. Okay, and we'll get into that, but... Mm-hmm. So, I guess, so you said that you would go to church, weekly, and you'd be there all day?
Yeah. Official church time is 9 to 12, but in Nigeria, it's 9 to whenever the hell they're done. Because usually after church they'll have the groups break up, so you have the teenage group, they do their stuff, and sometimes you have prayer even on Sunday evening, so you can go home for a few hours, come back for prayer. But yeah, it was and also in Nigeria you don't just go to church on Sundays. Most people go on Sundays, and then maybe they'll have something on Tuesday and something on Friday as well, so it's lots and lots of church.
You said that in Nigeria the worst thing you can be is an atheist. Why did you say that?
People really think that atheists are really stupid, which I find extremely ironic. But so Nigeria, I guess devil worshippers are Christians call them that, but they are more pagan. So people who worship the traditional gods of Nigeria. But there's just really so much stigma around being an atheist, and people just really assume it means you're really evil, or you just don't understand spirituality, or you just don't. I guess to an extent, being religious and being Nigerian can sometimes be seen as one thing. So like when you're an atheist, you're not really Nigerian. They think it's more of a Western idea to not believe in God.
That can be really hard because that's a cultural divide where that kind of
Yes.
puts up a wall.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
Did you have siblings that were religious as well, or?
Yeah. I guess when we're young, we're all reluctant Christians. My sister now is kind of devout. I had a brother, but unfortunately he did pass. He was
no.
never really into church that much. Neither was I. I was okay with Christianity, but I hated church. It was like the worst thing for me.
What was bad about it for you? What about it didn't you like?
I mean, it was really boring. It really was. And even as a child, some things just didn't make sense to me. Like one thing that drove me absolutely crazy, I remember asking my mom when I was 5 that why did God put the tree in the Garden of Eden? And that really bothered me so much. Of course, she had like, trying to filter myself. She had answers to it, which were just, bad answers. But things like that pissed me off, but also the rules. Like I didn't like to have to cover my hair because we would cover our hair in church, and I didn't like that. I didn't like speaking in tongues. There was this pressure to do it. Everybody's like, yeah, just do it, let it go. And I just felt like that was fake in a way.
Yeah.
But the pressure was always there, and I didn't like that either.
Interesting. And that was when you were younger, so like a.
But yeah, when I was younger.
Okay. What about you? What about the tree in the Garden of Eden bothered you?
It's just not logical, right? So you're telling me an all-seeing, all-loving, all-powerful being. Okay, for instance, I'm a mom, right? So I'm a mom, and my kid is in a room, and there's a snake right there. And I can foresee that, oh, this snake is going to bite my kid, and my kid is going to play with the snake. I'm just not going to leave my kid there because I can see that happening. So I just didn't understand how God can see all the consequences and everything, but decides to put a tree there. So even as a child, that bothered me. I just didn't see how that made sense.
Yeah, so he was basically setting them up. He knew it would end badly, and yet he put it there anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's your fault.
Yeah.
I feel like as a parent, you should be responsible as a parent.
And to look out for your kids and make sure that no harm comes to them.
Yeah. And whenever I ask my mom this question, and I tell her, because I always have my debates with my mom because my dad just can't. He can't deal with me. And I always ask her, okay, as a mom, would you leave your child? And she's like, of course not. And I'm like, okay, by the same logic, why do you think it's okay for God to do that? And then she goes through the whole thing like, well, it's God and everything. But I always bring it back to this, that you should hold God to an even higher standard than you hold human beings, right? Because if you're telling me that it's going to make you an irresponsible parent to leave your child there, then why wouldn't you expect more from God?
Yeah. Yeah. So she'll have conversations with you about it, but you said your dad can't handle it. Is that what you said?
Yeah, he just doesn't.
He doesn't
like arguing.
Yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't like questioning things. My mom wants to convince me, and I guess she can tolerate my blasphemies, but my dad can't.
So, church in Nigeria, I mean, it sounds very similar to, church for people in America, I guess. Tell me the difference. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. For instance, I don't mind going to church here. Like there's one, I go sometimes when my parents are in town, St. James, and I really like it because it's exactly 1 hour. I could do with church for 1 hour, but the ones in Nigeria go forever. And then you have to go back and and everybody's all up in your.
Yeah. So it must be like a Catholic church or.
No, the one there it's Baptist. It's Baptist,
wow.
But it's more, it's I guess more fundamental. Well, not the really crazy stuff, but it's more fundamental than Baptist churches here. Here it's more relaxed. In Nigeria, it's really uptight. You have to dress up, and there are some cultural aspects that come into play with it as well, not just the religious ones. So here is more relaxed, it's more informal. In Nigeria, it's slightly more formal.
And is it okay for me to let people know that you're in the States now? You're in the United States, yeah. Yeah, because I don't think I mentioned that when, or I don't think that came up when we were talking earlier. So yeah, so when they're in town, then you'll go to church just basically because that's what they would like to do. So you go with them.
Yeah, because they really pressure me. Although the last time I did, I said no, and I guess because like my dad was trying to make us go, because they were in town like less than a month ago, and I said no. My mom did back me up, which shocked me. But me and my mom did have like a really huge argument recently, so maybe she's starting to respect my views more now.
Mm-hmm. So as you grew older, when you were a child, as you grew older, did your relationship with God or did your faith change in any way? Or
Okay, I guess at which point? I guess up until I was like 17, it got more. I guess I got a relationship with him, because before it was all based on my parents. So yeah, up until 17, it did become more interpersonal.
okay,
Like I'll feel like, I'll pray, I'll feel like I'm talking to God, and I'll have dreams which I interpret, or like I'll have nightmares and have angels there coming to save me and things like that.
yeah,
But from that point forward, it kind of
it was yeah, it's different. Or it changed obviously. Tell me about some of those, like what kind of dreams were you having, or you said you would interpret your dreams, so you'd have dreams. Do you remember any of them?
Oh yeah. Nigeria, it's so you guys don't really have this in the States, but in Nigeria there's still lots of belief in witchcraft and all that stuff. So there was one dream I was having. I was in the bathroom and then I saw like a witch, pretty scary. She went past and I was like so scared. And then I woke up and I saw an angel like just, smiling at me and like petting my head. And then I woke up for real. So like things like that, like God was always watching me. I was fine. Oh, I used to have lots of sleep paralysis. And if I actually get to that, I do have an interesting observation about that. But I used to have a lot of that. And when I have that, I'll pray. And there was one time I felt like I heard the Holy Ghost like talking in my ear, like keeping me calm. And I'll pray and then it will go away. But in hindsight, like then I was like, oh, sleep paralysis is caused by, the witches trying to suck your life force or something. But in hindsight, the sleep paralysis, the prayer didn't always work. But when I was a Christian, I didn't really realize that until I was looking back at it. But also, ironically enough, when I stopped being a Christian, I had less sleep paralysis. Like back then, I would have it like maybe 4 times a week, but now I have it like 3 times a year.
Oh,
And my
wow.
mom's take on it, yeah, my mom said that now that I'm not a Christian, I'm now the devil's child, so it doesn't torment me anymore.
Oh no, that's horrible.
Oh yeah.
He just leaves you alone now. He's like, okay, she's in my corner. I'm
She's
good.
fine. All good.
He can go bother some doubting Christians somewhere and try to pull
Yep.
them away now. That's really interesting that you say sleep paralysis, because both my wife and I, when we were very Christian, I'll just speak for myself. My experience, 2 or 3 times it happened in my teenage years when I was the most devout. I woke up. I didn't even know it was sleep paralysis until a few years ago. I didn't really even know what it was, but I woke up and I felt like I was, paralyzed, like I couldn't move.
Oh yeah.
And there was a figure, like I thought, a demon, like a black, like shadowy figure, over me. And I didn't, it was a threat. I remember being terrified, just feeling terror. And then, somehow you fall back to sleep or whatever and wake up in the morning and think, oh my goodness, like that must have been a demon trying to get to me. So that's interesting that you had sort of similar experiences.
Yeah. And I think like the power of the mind is just ridiculous, Like when I have it now, I know that, I guess maybe for listeners, so sleep paralysis, it happens when your body paralyzes, I guess your brain paralyzes your body, so you don't go out acting out your dreams. And like a trick I've figured out to help me get out of it is just like focus on like wiggling a small part of your body. Like I do it with my toes and it goes away.
Wow.
So I'm fine with it now. Yeah. But back then I used to get like super terrified and everything, and I always like interpreted the sleep paralysis in terms of like the witches and the demons and everything. But now it happens, I'm just like, okay, wiggle my toes and I go back to sleep.
Wow, that's kind of
not a
a
problem.
funny trick, and I never got it.
It does work.
I never got sleep paralysis on a regular basis like you did. So that must have been,
It was terrible.
yeah, and because you also thought that it was the devil or a demon trying to attack you.
Yep.
So, I mean, was it hard to fall asleep at night?
Oh yeah, it was hard. It was hard. And funny enough, even now when I go back to Nigeria, I do get scared more often just because of that whole environment of the culture of the witches and everything, that whole past. But it was really hard for me to sleep. I would pray every night. I would read my Bible before I go to sleep. I'll have my Bible right beside me. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're
Whenever
trying.
I had like, nightmares, I'll go to my mom and like everything had a meaning, and we'll read the Bible and pray and yeah.
Wow. So you would spend time with her like right before bed to try to make yourself feel better.
Yeah, and like usually we would like pray as a family before going to bed
Yeah.
as well.
And you said you read the Bible. Is there anything from the Bible that you remember reading that influenced you a lot?
I guess with sleep, there was a verse about God keeping his angels watch over you or something. I would read that a lot if I went to sleep.
Yeah. Your faith or your relationship with God,
Hmm.
did you consider it like a personal relationship? Like he was like a
Oh yeah, yep,
and prayed regularly, and
yeah.
in what other ways did your faith kind of manifest itself in your life?
Let's see. I mean, well, trying to follow the rules of the Bible, like the Ten Commandments, and all that stuff. So I mean, like with my family, it was an entire lifestyle. Like we didn't do the Old Testament things of like shellfish and all that stuff, but all the other ones. Like for instance, if I try to argue with my mom, she's like, the Bible says you have to respect your parents, things like that. Everything quote the Bible. I mean, if I did something wrong and I could quote the Bible to get away with it, I was fine. I can't really think of anything right now, but
That's okay. Yeah. So how would you have described your personal relationship with God? Like what did he mean to you?
he was, my protector, my best friend. I would talk to God all the time. If I lost my keys, it's so cliche, I guess. But I'll pray to God and I'll find the keys. If I don't find the keys, then I don't remember that, of course. But every single thing I needed, pray before exams, talk to God about my day. So yeah.
Yeah, he was just a regular part of your life, it sounds like.
Oh yeah.
Up until the time you were 17, now obviously you had issues with, like, you didn't like covering your hair, you didn't feel comfortable speaking in tongues, and had issues with, like, the tree in the garden and things like that. But were there any other doubts that were kind of bothering you up until the time you were about 17 years old?
No, there weren't any doubts. I just went with everything except those inconsistencies. I guess, I did tell myself, well, God did have a plan about the tree because, when somebody repeats something to you enough times, it kind of seems true.
Yeah. It was just a part of your life and you didn't question it.
Exactly. But I was going to say the turning point for me, I guess it was when I was 16 to 17. There was this website called Answer Bag. Do you know it?
I haven't heard of it.
It was kind of like Yahoo Answers, but it was more, I guess, more philosophical, the kind of people it attracted. But it closed down early this year, which really sucks.
Oh, no.
But I used to go on that on that website, and there were lots of people asking questions about Christianity. So I was the Christian person answering all those questions for them, and that period really made me really read the Bible. Because to support my argument, I have to like have the verses, like study the Bible. And in doing that, everything started to unravel for me.
Wow, that's really interesting. I want to jump into that in a minute. Up until this point, though, was there anything else significant that you feel is important to mention about your life?
I did mention, I think before, my brother did pass away. So that as well it did make me question things, like if the Bible says that God looks out for his people and everything, why did that happen?
Yeah.
So that really let me down and really did make me have doubts. So that was also
A
an
factor.
important point too. Yeah, it was a factor.
How old were you when he passed?
I was 12. Wait,
Okay.
hold on. No, I was 14.
14, and how old was he?
16.
16. Okay, so he was. You guys were fairly close, and
Yeah.
you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. I can move on, but
Okay,
were-
close.
yeah, you guys were close, so that obviously had a huge impact.
Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, tell me more about how you would be on this website and people would ask questions of Christians.
All right.
Seems like it energized you and you were excited to do it, to try to find the answers.
Hmm.
Do you remember ever getting getting a question where you were stumped and you didn't know how to respond to it?
I mean, a couple, for instance, like the one about, why is there evil in the world? Of course, my answer was, there's evil in the world because of the devil. That's what all Christians would say. Or, God knows best, like God has a perfect plan. And like I said it enough times where, people ask me to back it up and I'll try to back it up. And then it just wouldn't really make sense. I guess coming to that age, I became more logical. And I feel like if you're talking about the all-knowing, all-intelligent, perfect being, the least it can be is logical. And when you're not logical, it just really unraveled. And my mom used to tell me to stop going on that site. And I didn't understand because, here I am being the crusader for Christianity. Why are you telling me not to go on? But I guess you could see what was going to happen. So just, trying to defend my own views, I could see all the flaws in my views.
Interesting. So what's your first memory during that time of really doubting or really struggling with a belief that you had?
There was a question about the Garden of Eden.
Back to the Garden of Eden.
Oh yeah, that one. I tried every single angle to justify it, brought verses about how it had to happen so that Jesus would come to save us and everything. But somebody was like, it's causal, it's a causational relationship. If God just didn't put it there, man wouldn't fall, therefore man wouldn't need saving. And I couldn't justify that. So that one really, and there was this specific guy, I can't remember his handle, but he was like an older gentleman. And he was like he wasn't like rude, but he was really like logical about everything. And I guess speaking with him specifically, because there wasn't anything I could say that he would just let slide. So he really made me have to dig deep to try to justify my beliefs. And in doing that, I just could see all the holes. And
yeah, so it was the whole God basically setting up man and woman to sin.
Yeah, it just made God seem like a psychopath, to be honest.
Yeah. So this gentleman was very influential. Oh, by the way, were you still in Nigeria at that time?
No, I was in Qatar.
Qatar, okay. How? At what age did you move from Nigeria to Qatar?
It was right after my brother passed away.
Okay.
I was 14 going on 15.
Okay. And was there any reason in particular that your family decided to move?
Yeah, my dad moved to Qatar because he got his dream job there. Oh. And then after the whole thing happened with my brother, they took me there.
Okay. So had you stayed behind then when did your parents or did your dad move and then you said they brought you with them later?
Yeah, my dad moved. My mom went to meet him. The plan was that I was going to stay in Nigeria to finish my secondary school and boarding school, which, I really did like it. And then I went on vacation with my parents, and they never let me go back.
Oh.
Because I guess they were really concerned. My mom was just, she was heartbroken, so she just had to have me there. So
yeah. Yeah, and it's just, you had, how many siblings did you have?
I had a sister in addition. She was in college, and they didn't want to take her out of college, so she just finished back in Nigeria. And she was older, so.
Yeah, it's more self-sufficient. And
yeah.
So she was in Nigeria, so then you guys moved to Qatar. Your dad has a dream job there. And that's when you're starting to get online. And this is when you're 17 years old-ish?
Yeah, 16, 17.
Okay.
Well, at 16, I was on there, it was all cool answering all the questions. And then 17, I was like, okay, well, yeah, that doesn't add up.
Interesting. So
Yeah,
the Garden...
even then, I was still holding on to the belief.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I left Qatar that,
So I think you had mentioned that being in Qatar was a different type of environment religiously.
Yes. So being in Qatar, we didn't have lots of friends and family. And, friends and family do play a huge role. For instance, if you miss church, you have your friends and family calling you, hey, where were you today? But in Qatar, we didn't have that. And also the church in Qatar was more Western. Well, it was a universal church, but it had a more westernized approach to it. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't as involved as a Nigerian one.
Okay.
And also, my parents didn't really have so much ties with the church, so it would only go about once a week. And sometimes we wouldn't even go to church.
Only go once a week. That's fairly frequent, but that's funny.
And it was only 3 hours, so.
Compared to Nigeria, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's not multiple times a week, and it's not hours and hours and hours. Is Nigeria, compared to Qatar, are there more Muslims there or less Christians, or?
Oh, that is a tricky question. So Qatar is officially it's an Islamic country, but they are quite liberal. But there are many people who are not from Qatar in Qatar. So when you take that into account, you have lots of Christians in Qatar, you have lots of Hindus in Qatar. So I would say Nigeria probably has more Muslims, because I mean also we have a bigger population, and the religious split is like 49% Muslims, 49% Christians, and 1% other in Nigeria.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have way more Muslims in Nigeria.
Do you think it causes a problem? Like,
oh hell yeah. Oh hell yeah.
And I apologize because I don't know a whole lot about Nigeria other than stuff that pops up in the news from time to time, but
in some places it does. Like as a younger child, I was in the northern part of Nigeria. It's a state called Kaduna, and they will often have religious riots with the Muslims pretty much killing the Christians. Now I'm not trying to be Islamophobic. I am not that kind of person, but based on that experience, I had a really bad experience with that. And then actually moving to Qatar, I was really terrified. I was scared as hell. I was almost crying because, I've had this experience and they're going to tell me I'm going to a Muslim country,
Yeah. Well, you said when you had these experiences in Nigeria with Islam or with Muslims.
Right.
Was it something in specific that happened?
Yeah. Yeah, just in the northern part, yes. Well, not to get all sad, but they would have what they call the religious riots. And there was one time, I think I was about 7, where it started and I was in school and I was separated from my parents because the kids were like we were like hidden away in like somebody's house somewhere. And then like after 2 days, we're moved to the military barracks, so the soldiers could keep us safe before the entire.
So after 2 days, so this went on for days.
Oh yeah, for days. And I actually saw somebody get chopped up.
Wow.
And it was really bad because I didn't know if my parents were dead or alive. And it was really cool because we're going back to the school to get some things and my parents just happened to be there. So like I saw them after like 4 days or so.
Wow.
So that happened. The second one I went through wasn't really bad because the place we're staying was right next to the assistant governor of the state. So like we're well protected. But after the second one, we moved to a different state. So to the southern part of Nigeria, you have Muslims and Christians, but they all get along.
Okay, so northern Nigeria was more conflict.
More. Exactly.
That's intense. I mean, I can't imagine. Yeah, that's horrible having to. Wow.
Oh yeah.
So I can see why when your parents wanted to move to Qatar.
I was like, what are you talking about? No, I was terrified. But I mean,
Wow.
getting there, it was a whole different kind of Islam. They were really liberal. They were really accepting, open, and like the land where the churches are built on, the state gave them that land. So they're really, I never had a problem there at all.
Good.
But just that thought really scared me.
Oh yeah, that would scare anybody, I think. Yeah. So when you were having doubts about, the Garden of Eden and you're having, these correspondence online with people asking questions, was there a point when your doubts became too much, and did you confide in anybody about those doubts?
Yes, my mom. Because someone asks a question, and then, I go to do my research in the Bible, and if I fall short, I go talk to her. And, her answer is like, why are you doing that? Just get off the sides. But, I wanted to see it through. But I didn't really, I wasn't really so explicit that I had doubts, but she did kind of see it, so.
Okay, so you would talk to your mom when you would have these discussions. If something stumped you or was difficult to respond to, you'd go to your mom and talk, and her response, maybe she'd try to help, but she would basically say, just stop doing that. Get off that site.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
or,
so
she would give the classic, God knows best. And then if that doesn't work, then, get off that side. What are you doing on there? I'm like, I'm trying to help bring these people to Jesus. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you're on the front lines, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, so when did you realize you didn't believe in God anymore?
Okay, so 18, I moved to America because I got into USF. I got into college here. And, my religion was closely tied to my parents. So, once I got out of that environment, there was nobody to force me to go to church. And I did go to church, but I was like, oh, this is terrible. Why am I here? So I stopped going. And then I started doing like Bible study. well, they'll have the people from the church come to your dorm to like have a small Bible study. And I started asking them all these questions that just, didn't make sense, like Garden of Eden. And the girl just completely shut me down. And I felt like, well, you can't give me answers. Nobody gives me answers. Why can't I ask these questions? So that made me like look online for answers. And I just saw a whole bunch of, like, for instance, like the flaws of the Bible, the translation stuff, the thing about, I think in the 16th century or something, where like, I can't remember exactly, but like some king may have manipulated the Bible to align more with his views. Why did I think about all these things? Because it's so possible. Because I always took the Bible as, the word of God. It can't be false, but it's so easy for some things there to be false. So I started like, looking for answers on my own, like thinking beyond the Bible, and it just didn't hold up. So around when I was 18, 19, I just gave up. I just couldn't do it anymore. I just didn't want to read the Bible. I just didn't want to go to church. And so yeah, around 18, 19.
Okay. And when you were going to these Bible studies, you said that this woman or this girl just shut you down, like just was not
shut
having...
me down completely. Like shut me down and left.
Wow. At a Bible study?
Yeah.
Were you supposed to be asking questions and studying the Bible?
Yep, as long as you ask the right questions, I guess.
Right, exactly. So at that point, did you confide in anybody? Were you talking to anybody that you knew at school about these doubts you were having?
There was one of my friends, Samara. I'll talk to her. She also used to go to the Bible study because it was a very small group. So it was just me, her, and then 2 girls from the church. And I'll talk to her about it. She still believes in God, but she does agree that some of it is not logical, So she's not like she's not a fundamentalist believer in the Bible. I'll say it that way.
Okay. Yeah. So I can see. Yeah. That's so frustrating when, I mean, you were trying to answer people's questions online, and then when you go, because I just think that's like, if you're a Christian, that's the right thing to do. You're helping people understand God's word. But then you go to try to ask a question of somebody and they just completely put up a wall and say, no, not going to answer that. Don't ask that kind of question.
Yep.
Wow. Was there anything that kept you holding on to your belief in God? Was there anything that was difficult to let go of? So when you decided, I don't believe in God anymore, was there anything that was kind of making it difficult to...
Definitely, and that would be my parents. Because, it's really hard, especially in Nigeria. It's really hard to go, I don't believe in God, I was thinking my parents would be so disappointed. Maybe they'll be angry. Maybe they'll even disown me, And so that made it hard. But also just like building your life around an idea and just coming to realize that, it's false. It's really hard to move past that. So that made it hard too.
Wow. So you were in college, and did you tell your parents then?
So they came over for Christmas, and I did tell them eventually because they wanted me to pray. And I was like, pray.
Oh, no.
I don't want to pray. I haven't prayed in a while. And so I told them. And my dad cried.
Oh, no.
My dad cried. Like, I was like... he cried. My mom was so disappointed. Because my dad is actually more emotional than my mom, surprisingly. My mom was so disappointed. She was like, why? I was like, it just doesn't make sense. She's like, I guess, for them, it doesn't have to make sense. Because it's not about logic. It's about faith. But I didn't have any more faith, so what can I do? And I remember we also went to the Holy Land experience in do you know that place in Florida, Orlando?
I've heard of it. I think Bill Maher did a movie called The Religulous, and I think he goes to that place.
Okay. Well, we went there. I did not want to go. We went anyways, and they were so excited, and I was just like, wow, all this so much BS in one place. And we saw this like a play about Jesus and everything, and there I was like, I don't like God, but I think I like Jesus, and it made my parents slightly happier, to hear me say that. So I kind of had a compromise with them just by saying that. And like, I do kind of like some of the ideas of Jesus, so I did, separate those two to make them feel happier.
That's kind of good. I mean, then it made it a little bit better for them, because like you said, probably their conception of an atheist was an evil, apparently stupid, an evil, stupid, bad person. And so when you say, I am an atheist, you're saying I'm all of those things
Exactly.
to them. And so that's probably what upset your dad so much, and your mom. But then when you explain, hey, listen, I'm an atheist, but, I can appreciate
It's
some
just
of the...
it's totally cool,
Yeah, exactly. And what's great about that too is that it helps people who don't know atheists learn that like atheists aren't angry, mean, evil people. They're your daughter or they're your friend or
Exactly.
and they can certainly see the good in the Bible. And I think there's so many atheists and humanists I talk to that find certain parts of the Bible beautiful, or they find a lot of value in the Bible or in Jesus's teachings. They just don't believe that he's God, or they just don't believe in a deity.
Exactly.
That's really yeah.
Yeah.
So, what was the most difficult thing for you during this entire time?
I think. What do you mean, like then till now, or just then?
I was thinking of like up until the point where you kind of deconverted and you told your parents. What was the most difficult thing for you during that time?
I think the whole deconversion was hard. Just giving up all these ideas I've had. But it was kind of like, I don't know if this makes sense. Like there were two of me, right? There was the Christian Vix and the atheist Vix, and they were constantly at war with each other. It's like trying to like figure out, because I had to reinvent myself, trying to figure out who am I. But there was also the problem of, growing up, morality was tied to religion. So even I was seeing myself as this evil person because I didn't believe in God. But I came to realize that it's not just that. And I think one thing that helped me was I had this philosophy class, also somebody else who influenced me, and I was always in my professor's office because talking about these things, because he also had a similar experience. Well, his parents were atheists, and I think he was really lucky, but he grew up in Turkey, so he did have that environment as well. So we'll talk about all these things, and he'll give me like places to go to read about stuff and help me deal with all these issues. So having him, did help me. But just coming out of that world, and I'll call it the dark ages in my life, to seeing the lights was really hard.
Yeah, so that whole process and so you think that talking to this professor really helped you understand your own morality?
Oh, it did. It really did. Because at that point, I was like, what is my moral compass? What is right? What is wrong? By now, I just came up with just don't be a dick,
Yeah.
Human being, do right. And the Bible, ironically, the Bible condemns that because the Bible says something like, your morality is about whether or not you believe in God. It's not by works alone. It's by, believing in God and everything. So I was like, well, even if I'm a good person, I'm not good enough because I don't believe in God. But I did eventually come out of that.
It's like faith is a virtue in that world. Where like it's not really a virtue. A virtue is like doing nice things for other people or being kind or But yeah, I can.
One thing he did that really really helped me. It was kind of negative, but okay. So it pretty much took me to a website. I can't remember the name, but it pretty much lists all the really awful things Christians have done. So he did that to try to explain to me that morality is not about being a Christian, because you can obviously see the Crusaders, the Knight Templars. Those are pretty awful things. So that helped me go, I see. So
yeah, that's good. That's cool. And so I was just going to ask, what was the most helpful thing during this time? Was it that, or was there something else?
I think that was really helpful. But also coming out to my parents as an agnostic, atheist, whatever, really helped, because every morning I wake up feeling like a disappointment. I feel like there's this horrible secret. But just eventually telling them this is what's happening, this is where I am, helped me kind of like close that chapter.
Yeah. What was your biggest fear when you thought about telling them?
That I was going to get disowned.
Yeah.
It does happen in Nigeria. It really does. Being atheist is not a small thing. So that was my biggest fear. But I mean, I guess they love me more than I thought they did. So that was good.
Are there many Christians in your life other than your family?
Yeah. Well, currently, that is I've never thought about that. Actually, no. Oh no, I do have one Christian friend. But her take on Christianity is really cool. She's not like a Bible.
A Bible thumper?
Yeah,
or
Bible thumper.
Fundamentalist?
No, she's not like that.
Okay.
She is really modern. And she believes that the Bible is a way to go to God. So it's a way to touch on God. It's not like the ultimate like thing. So, I can deal with her. She's the only Christian I have as a friend right now.
Oh,
But I mean, my
interesting.
family is just a whole bunch of Christians.
So, and do you have to? No, are your parents still in Qatar then?
Yeah.
Did you say okay? And do you visit them very often?
About once a year.
Okay, and so when you go back there, do you have to go to church and see family and?
Oh, it was really funny the last time. Well, let me just backtrack a little bit. Right now it's coming to a point whereby they're starting to respect my lack of religiousness more. So it's getting better. But I remember the last time I went there. I mean, well, the last time before the last time. And my dad was talking about church, and I was like, I'm not going. And he was like, yes, you're going. I was like, no, I'm not going. And I said, the only way I'll go is if you drag me by my hair. And he was like, okay, I'll do that if I have to. And I told him, okay, how does that make you, how does that make you better than the Muslim terrorists we talk of sometimes? And that shut him up so quickly, and I was so proud of myself.
Oh wow!
They're starting to see that this is not something you can force. And they really did try to force it before. So they are like, especially my mom, which, I'm really shocked at. She's really backing off. And I'm kind of hoping I'm getting to her, but I don't know.
I know there's always that hope that like maybe someone in your family will start to see it from your perspective and start to understand really, the reasons why you don't believe. But yeah, that is also really hard because some people, like you said, it's not about the logic, it's about their faith.
Exactly.
It's just something they need in their life, and so they may never let go of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For those Christians that are in your life, do they misunderstand the reason you're no longer a Christian?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Everybody thinks it's because of my brother. They're like, oh, you're coming from a place of pain. That did start me thinking, but it's not that. It's simply because it doesn't make any sense to me. That's why I'm not a Christian. Like, I'm not, okay, I'm kind of bitter sometimes towards the ideology because it has potential for good, but it also has potential for evil. But I don't really hate Christians. I don't hate Christianity. I don't hate the Bible. I just don't think it's real. And I have really good reasons for that. So they think, I'm an atheist because I hate, Christianity, but I don't. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And they don't really see that. And I don't understand why they don't see that, but most of them don't understand that.
That would be frustrating because
So
obviously,
frustrating,
yeah.
especially with my mom.
So is she one that thinks that your brother is a main reason why you don't believe?
No, actually no, but she just thinks I'm being bitter. She thinks I'm running away from God. We don't really talk about my brother much. I guess we never really processed it as a family.
Uh-huh.
She thinks maybe I'm being bitter. She doesn't think she doesn't think I'm not Christian she doesn't see that I'm not Christian because it doesn't make any sense, because it makes so much sense to her that she can't see beyond. Like, for instance, recently, and she says things that just drive me crazy, but like less than a week ago, we're talking, and I don't know how we got to this, but oh, I get it. So I was telling her, oh, she was like, oh, humans are so lucky because God doesn't just flood the earth, because of our transgressions. And I was like, well, you think it's okay? That's like being a psychopath. She was like, no, that he made us, he can do whatever. And she was like, if you make a clay pot, you can break the clay pot if it doesn't turn out how you want it to. And I said, well, human beings are not a clay pot, we're humans. And she was like, no, we are clay because the Bible said we're made from sand. And I'm like, okay, if we're made from sand, the human DNA should closely match the silica, right? She was like, yes, it does. Scientists say that. I'm like, they don't. So she says that all the time. She just throws in the word science says that to kind of convince me, but it doesn't.
Oh no.
That really drives me crazy.
She's just trying really, really hard. She really, really
Yeah.
wants you to see it from her side.
And then she called me stupid for not seeing it. I'm like, yeah,
Wow.
cool. Whatever.
Yeah. Like, okay, Mom.
Yeah. I guess the part that troubles me is my parents are actually both extremely smart people. Like, they're both really successful in their fields. My mom is she's in consulting in the medical field. My dad is he's an engineer for planes, and he's really high up there. So I'm like, how can you be so smart but yet so not smart in this regard? And that just bothers me every single day.
Yeah. I know that's really hard to sometimes wrap your mind around.
It is.
Because an engineer, he had to have gone to quite a bit of schooling to...
A lot. Like, he goes back to school twice a year, because every time they modify a plane or a new one comes out, he goes back. And he does so well. And I just don't understand. And my mom does the same thing, too.
Well, like you said, I mean, it's for them, it's faith. It's not.
Exactly, it's
They,
faith, no logic.
it's almost, yeah, it's pretty much just, they're gonna check the logic at the door, and then, I
Yeah,
mean, it
exactly.
doesn't need to make sense. But when they're talking to you, they try to use logic to try to. But they're not. There's a certain. They'll only go so far with logic. It
Yeah.
seems. Yeah. When you look back from the time you were young and you were in church, and then, as you grew older, and your relationship with God became, it was a deeper relationship with God, and it was personal. From those days all the way through until today, is there something good about yourself that you look back and see that was there all along? That was there in the Christian you, and it's
Right.
still there now. Yeah.
I think compassion, like I'm quite empathic. I see people's pain. I want to end it. I don't hurt people. I always try to see things from their angle and act accordingly. And when I was a Christian, I pretty much felt it was because I was a Christian. But since I came out of that, I still have that trait, and I think now it's because I'm a decent human being. And I feel even more proud of myself because I do it not because God is going to send me to hell if I don't, but I do it because I want to.
Out of your own, yeah, out of the goodness of your heart, not
Yes, exactly.
right, not because you're being told to do it. So, compassion and empathy. What are some issues that you feel strongly about, where you think that your compassion and your empathy, I guess you apply your compassion or your empathy, or that comes into play? Are there any issues or things that you care a lot about where compassion and empathy are kind of a big part of that?
So Nigeria has a problem with gay rights. They recently, in 2000, and I think 15, made it illegal to be gay, and I don't quite understand how that works. But I think I really take that personally because I guess I too was not the best person regarding that because the Bible, being a fundamental Christian. So like when I see things like that happen, like people terrorizing them and stuff, it really hurts in a way, and I really want to help because I think hating somebody just for that it's wrong, and like using the Bible, really, it really doesn't add up because like if you're going by what Jesus said love everyone, but it's really ironic how some Christians could just go to that one verse in the Old Testament, forget all the stuff about eating crabs and like mixed linen and just like stand on that. So I always try to speak up against that. And it really gives me bad reputation with my Nigerian friends and even with my parents. But I do it anyways. I say this and I tell them, I'm like, okay, based on this, I'm a better Christian than you are.
Wow.
Because if you're hating people, I mean, Jesus said not to do that. So
Do you know anybody in Nigeria who's gay that can't be open?
I don't know anybody personally. But I do read lots of things about arrest, and you see posts on Facebook about people making fun of this guy who who like I guess doesn't look like a stereotypical dude. So I do see it happen a lot, but I don't know anyone personally.
It's more like they shame them, but also it's illegal, so they can get into serious trouble sometimes.
They arrest them sometimes because I mean they made it illegal. And but I mean it's only in some parts. Like in Lagos, Nigeria, like everybody does whatever. It's religious, but people still. It's religious, but also very hypocritical in Lagos. So
Yeah. And Lagos is that one of the larger cities in Nigeria?
yeah, it's the largest one. It's I guess the economic capital of Nigeria.
Okay. And is that in the south or the north of the country?
South.
Okay. So you've lived in both. You lived in the north of Nigeria and then also in the south. And
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, and it sounds like the south's the better place to be.
Yeah. It is.
That's funny. So when you think back on the Christian you, what do you think about that person now?
That's a hard question. I really don't go back there. Just believing everything, she was given, not really thinking things through. I guess too reliant on her parents, because I didn't think for myself. I let them do the thinking for me. Also bitter, because I just like shoved everything in. And like I just accepted everything as they are. Like if something bad happens, I'm like, oh, it's God's will. So I just like back down, don't really like try to change anything. Unlike now, I feel like I'm the master of my destiny. So I actually try to be more proactive in my own life. So.
Yeah. So when you say bitter, are you bitter when you look back, or were you bitter then?
I was bitter then. So I was reluctantly accepting things, which made me bitter.
what were you reluctantly accepting? What types of things?
For instance, like, that my brother passed away, and like part of it was like, medical malpractice. But then I was like, well, I guess it was God's plan. So, I mean, I was too young to do anything, but I could have made my parents do something, and they could have done something. But like the whole covering my hair, I didn't like that, but was what I was meant to do, so I did it. But now I don't like rules. I just, I live my life. I try not to hurt people, but I don't like rules that don't really make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody likes rules that don't make sense. That's not, I mean, I guess lots of Christians apparently do.
They're probably are reluctant about it too. They just don't say anything.
That's right. Yeah. Because they can't challenge the scriptures, or they can't challenge their church leaders or whatever, Yeah. What do you like best about being an agnostic?
Freedom. Freedom to think for myself, freedom to read, even freedom to read, because as a Christian, I couldn't study other religions. There's some things I just shouldn't know, some knowledge, some questions I can't ask. So I guess freedom to read, freedom to think, freedom to explore.
That's cool. I like that answer.
Yeah.
What's one thing that you have learned or experienced that you may not have if you were still a Christian?
Going back to sleep paralysis, just, not being terrified by it anymore. I think that's really important for me. But also, I guess also how like how awesome humans are. Because back then, as a Christian, everything was tied to God. So somebody does something good, oh, praise God, the doctor saves you, thank God. But no, like humans, we've achieved so much, we've invented so many things, and that's us, that's not God doing that. So I've just had a big appreciation of human beings in general since I've been agnostic.
Yeah, that's cool. It's like giving credit where the credit really is due, where it belongs. Yeah.
And that was one thing that really bothered me, like you can praise God, but you can't blame him. Like I remember seeing one post when I was like 14 or so, and this girl, they said, people came into their house and they shot her in the head, but she survived. Praise God. I'm like, why didn't God stop the people from going to the house in the first place? How can you like praise God, but you can't blame him? Didn't make any sense to me.
Right. He let them walk in and shoot her, but we're just.
Oh, he saved her though. Yeah.
Yeah, but apparently he wanted that to happen. But then when the bullet came out, he was just going to kind of guide it away from her brain enough to let her live.
Yeah. Oh, one thing that really still breaks my heart. So, my brother did pass. And the worst part is my mom blames herself. And she says that it happened because she didn't pray hard enough.
Oh, no.
And whenever I hear that, I just get so mad, but I also get so sad, Like, you're telling me, you worship God and God promises you He's going to look out for you, but you did pray, but you just didn't pray hard enough, and that's why your son died.
So ultimately, she takes blame for it herself.
Yes, because she didn't pray hard enough.
How does your dad feel about that?
He doesn't talk about it.
Yeah, some people just aren't I guess big talkers, but in general, but yeah, something like that. I can see. It's just hard for people to process. And
yeah, but I don't think he blames himself, but she does. Because apparently she had a dream which pretty much chronicled everything that was going to happen. But I just think that's hindsight bias, just interpreting the dream after the fact. But she thinks that she should have, prayed more, done things differently.
That's kind of...
the way I see it, if God wanted you to pray more, then maybe he should have given you a clearer dream. But she doesn't see it that way, so...
That seems like a really common human response, though, when there's a tragedy, thinking like, what could I have done differently? I shouldn't have let my kids go to school that day. I shouldn't have driven home this way to, from work. I mean, even if we're not faith-based, that does seem like kind of a
that's true.
A common response. But yeah, it's really when it's sad when it's not true. Like, it's not that she didn't pray. It's not that it's nothing. She had nothing to do with it. She couldn't have stopped it. When you think back on your deconversion experience, is there something in your own life that you're most proud of in a good way?
I mean, well, it's not a big thing, but there was this paper I wrote. I think I have it online somewhere. I think it's called Fundamental Problems with the Biblical God. So I think that was like my thesis on becoming, agnostic, because like in that, I really looked at all the things that really didn't add up with God himself or itself or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yeah, that was one for me. And my teacher, helped me along. The philosophy one, I wrote it in his class. He helped me along with that. So in that paper, I really did, kind of finish my deconversion. I got to really explore everything that I was doubting about. And yeah.
That's
So
really
that
cool.
paper.
What were some of the topics that you touched on in your paper?
So there was this philosopher. Oh no, there was one. No, the first one was Pascal. He had this Pascal's wager. I don't know if you know about it.
Yep.
That one that says, well, just be Christian just in case, right? And I used to believe that. My dad told me that all the time, and I always believed it. But during that period, I was like, hold on a minute. Okay, it's only giving you two options, right? You believe in God, and there is a God, you're good. You don't believe in God, and there is a God, you go to hell. But what if you believe in God, but is one of the 2,000 other gods?
Yeah.
And I finally saw it in that perspective, and I was like, okay. So that was like one of the arguments I made. So that argument doesn't hold up. But it was also one by, I think it was Thomas Aquinas, or
Okay.
I think that was his name. I'm not sure. But he talked about how like all of human suffering, like the Garden of Eden, is just so God could bring about more good, But I also went to the other, side that if he never started that chain reaction from the garden, there wouldn't be a need to like save mankind, to like bridge the gap and everything. But it was talking about how, God just lets evil happen so that he can bring about good. And I think that's just bollocks, because you can bring about good without bringing evil. Like, imagine a world without evil, it's all good. So why do you have to make evil to bring good?
Yeah.
So that was one that I also like talked about too. But also small things like, the flat earth theory. The Bible does talk about that a bit. And so just things that, you feel like if this was the supreme book, everything should be perfect. It should get science right, because it's from God. He should know. He made everything. But things just didn't add up there.
Those are some cool topics.
Yeah.
That Pascal's wager was so convincing to me, and it was only recently that I heard kind of the argument you just made,
Right.
Where if a Christian is proposing that to you, like well, if basically you have everything to gain and nothing to lose, why not, right?
Exactly.
The response that it was similar to what you had said was, well, if you replace that God with Allah, if we're talking about Allah, then why wouldn't a Christian just believe in Allah? Just because he might be real, and if you're right, you get to go to heaven and be with Allah forever. And if not, you go to hell, so might as well just believe in Allah, right?
Exactly. Or the flying spaghetti monster,
Yeah. So, how did you get involved with the Flying Spaghetti Monster site or Facebook page?
So one of my friends, and he also influenced me in, I guess, the conversion as well. He is, like, we are really close family friends. My family has known his family for a while, so we just call each other cousins. So when I got here, like the second day I was in America, I was going out with him, grocery shopping, went to the movies, and we were talking about things like this, and he made some arguments. I can't remember what exactly, but he really made me think, because I guess he was basically like, you're here alone, your parents aren't here, you want to really think about if this is how you want to go with your life. Because he too left from Nigeria, and he also left his parents and his family, and he also came to the same place I am as well.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
So you guys are pretty close. So it was through this friend.
Yeah. So
and
he started the page, and then I joined the page from there.
Okay, cool. So, so did you guys know each other in Nigeria? Did you say?
Well, we knew each other's families. I don't think we met in Nigeria, though.
Okay.
But I met his mom before.
But you had known of his family.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And then he ended up coming to the same school you're at? Or you were at?
No. He was in Ohio, but my uncle's in Ohio, so when I was in Ohio, I saw him there.
Oh.
And I do see him often. We spoke like 2 or 3 days ago, actually. But he didn't go to the same school.
Oh, okay. But anyway, you both came from Nigeria. You both kind of followed the same religious path, and you're both in America now. Okay, so that's how you got involved with that. And then, what inspired you to be part of the Nigerian atheist agnostic movement?
He also started that page too. I guess when I saw the page, when I joined, there were only like 10 people. But even then, I was impressed, because you just get this feeling like I'm the only atheist or agnostic person in the whole of Nigeria, just being in that environment. So like seeing that there was a community and there were other people who thought like I did, drove me to join it. And I also wanted other people as well to know that they were not alone. And the page has grown, and I do get to talk to people a lot who have the exact same mindset, like, oh wow, there are other atheists. Is there like a place I could go to like have a meeting? And we haven't gotten to that stage yet, mostly because neither of us are actually based in Nigeria right now.
Yeah.
But it's just cool, like having that community for people, because people need to, think. And there's only one popular Nigerian, and his name is Wole Soyinka. He writes lots of books, does lots of philosophy, but there's only one popular Nigerian who is atheist. One. He has like a gray beard, lots of gray hair.
Is there anything about your entire experience that we haven't discussed that you would like to share?
I think one more thing is kind of like also philosophical frame, also from my philosophy professor. It's called the God of the Gaps argument. But it basically talks about how, all throughout the history of mankind, humans have like used God to explain gaps in human knowledge. And as science and technology progresses, the gaps become smaller and God becomes less relevant. For instance, before we understood lightning was caused by Zeus. Before we understood like floods, it was Poseidon. Before we understood like the Black Plague, it was demons and things like that. So I just really think, I think that helps, people really see religion in perspective, and the whole God thing in perspective. So like those books were written like a long time ago, and you can, take them as law, but you have to see it in the eyes of that time. There were lots of things they didn't know. So, having God explain everything really made sense to them. And I feel like people just don't really see that these days. So that argument too also stayed with me as well. It's my favorite argument.
Yeah, the God of the Gaps. Yeah, because for that time, 2,000-3,000 years ago, that made a lot of sense because they didn't have any of the knowledge we have today. So,
exactly.
Yeah, like how do you explain some of that stuff? I mean, it would be very bizarre, and as humans, we try to make sense of things that happen around us.
Exactly.
So that was the thing that made sense to them. Wow.
Or like going back to sleep paralysis, people who don't really know the details, how the brain how the brain sends those chemicals, to paralyze you. It's demons, it's witches. So.
Wow. And tell me a little bit more about in Nigeria, you said, and I've heard this before, Alex Jules, who was a previous guest on this show, had mentioned witchcraft in Africa is a part of the Christianity. In what ways is it kind of mixed in to the Christianity? I know you mentioned it a little bit earlier. You did talk about it a little bit.
In every possible way.
Okay.
Every possible way. In church, it's always a prayer point. You pray against the witches, all the people in your life who are, making charms and spells against you. And
Wow.
honestly, I think religion, especially in Nigeria or in Africa, I think there are ties between, I guess, desperation, maybe poverty, and being so religious, because religion kind of gives you like this protection, this upper hand. Like, how can all these things affect you when you have this God looking out for you?
Mm-hmm.
And lots of things are also explained, by witchcraft. For instance, this happens a lot, and it breaks my heart. I think people in the West, Christians in the West, have the luxury of, their version of Christianity not really being bad. I guess except is it Westboro Christian Baptist Church or something here? That's the only one I can think of. But in Nigeria, so many, I love my country. I'm not trying to speak bad about my country, but so many bad things happen in the name of Christianity. For instance, sometimes you have kids, and both of their parents die. The kids are orphans, and some people just believe that the kid is a witch and the kid killed their parents. Like, the kid is 2 freaking years old. What are you talking about? And there was this case, I don't know if you saw it, but it was kind of popular. But this child was like maybe 14, 16 months, living out of trash cans because they believed this baby was a witch. And then this missionary lady, all the way from the West, had to come in to adopt him. And, that's Christianity. Some of the Christians are like that.
Wow.
Or, for instance, there was another case, this man, the Nigerian government is really good at, not letting Christianity and all the crazy religious stuff, like, get away with all this craziness. But there was this pastor who had sex with a 12-year-old girl, and he said that it was during an exorcism. He was trying to, get rid of the demons, and the demon possessed him, and that's why he had sex with her.
Oh my God.
Things like that happen all the time, and some people believe it, but not the police. Of course, the police have more common sense than that, but that happens all the time.
Wow.
Or, the pastors, which, say that having sex with your wife is the way to cure her infertility, so they do that all the time. Oh yeah, Christianity also has its craziness,
Yeah,
and I've seen it. I've seen both religions, and I've
yeah.
seen the good side of both religions too. So,
But it's intermixed. It sounds. I mean, it's intermixed. It's inseparable from the
oh yeah,
Christianity. It's one
mm-hmm.
and the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you seen that kind of thing in your parents' life?
Oh no, thank God, no.
I mean,
No.
nothing. Sorry,
Well,
I didn't mean
not
the
crazy.
extreme stuff you just mentioned. I just mean
Right, right.
the influence of witchcraft or the influence
Yeah.
of that kind of thing, that flavor kind of mixed into the Christianity. That's what I was getting at. Sorry.
No, not the crazy stuff, but like the
Yeah.
influence of the witches, a lot, Sometimes I have all these dreams, and my mom is like, oh, she prays hard, and she thinks it's like the worst thing. And so when I was young, there was this bird that loved to cry at night, and everybody was convinced it was a witch bird. And that terrified me. Whenever I hear this bird, I wake up, I'm all panicked. I call my mom, we pray. She uses like holy oil on my head, the cross. And even though I'm agnostic now, it still stuck with me. Like there was one day here, I heard a bird that sounded similar. I couldn't sleep. I was terrified, but I didn't pray. So proud of myself. But yeah, things like that.
Kind of creeps you out.
Oh yeah, Christianity a
I
lot.
mean, the idea of a demon, the idea of a witch bird is
Hmm.
like creepy, like
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
the idea of you can see how even if we don't believe in these supernatural things, it's still the idea of those things is
Hmm.
kind of freaky, and it's just like watching a horror movie.
Just living through one.
Yeah,
Like, there are parts in the Bible which, they talk about witches and all that things. In the West, you guys tend to ignore it, but in Nigeria and in Africa, it's a focus. So I guess,
wow,
the culture takes the part about the religion as opposed to culture and just magnifies it.
yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting to hear about different types of Christianity in different parts of the
Hmm.
world because, like you said, it varies a lot.
It does.
I mean, even within the United States, there's
Hmm.
huge disparities between different churches. I mean, you have churches on the far left, like Unitarians, or really liberal,
Hmm.
like Episcopalian churches, and then you have the Westboro Baptist Church, and you have fundamentalists and everything in between. So even in the U.S., it gets extreme sometimes. But yeah, in Nigeria, that's very different
Hmm.
from our experience here, for sure.
And we also have the liberal churches, and they are starting to come up now. And it's kind of funny because the more fundamental churches, they're really demonizing those ones because those ones are pretty much in league with Satan. But you do have a movement, especially with the younger generations, where church is becoming more liberal. For instance, like growing up, the churches I went to, I couldn't go to church with trousers. Sorry, pants. You guys call them pants.
No,
over
it's
there.
all good. Yeah.
I couldn't go to church with pants, but now the churches, people wear whatever they want
Oh
in
wow.
some churches. But also that movement is becoming more of a business and having a cult of personality around the pastor. So I mean that has its problem as well, but it's not as much as the fundamental churches with the witchcraft and all that stuff.
I've heard people mention that before, and I'd actually like to hear
It's a massive problem. The new churches with the money and preachers.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was gonna get at.
Oh,
I like the way you said that. It's like a personality cult, or how did you say it?
cult of personality.
Cult
Yeah.
of personality.
Hmm. People are ending up kind of worshiping the pastor. Like there's this one, Chris Oyakilome, evil guy. So his church is called Christ Embassy, and the followers of the church are just like they're like cultists. For instance, right? So in one of his churches, my aunt used to go there, and for his birthday, now this church, I should backtrack, is mostly made up of young people. So people in college, people in high school, and people who don't have lots of money, right? So for his birthday, the pastor of the church wanted to come up with like 5 million naira. That's a lot of money for these people to give to the pastor as his birthday present. And they were giving people slips to like pledge money, and people were like, "How am I gonna afford this?" And if you can't, you get like shamed, you get kicked out. It's all about money in
How
that
much
church.
money did he want?
5 million naira. It's not a lot in US dollars, but for those people, it's a lot. But also, like in Nigeria, money has like more value than here. Like for instance, $2 gets me a cup of coffee here. In Nigeria, it gets me breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. So that's
Wow.
like a lot of money for them. Yeah, especially like when you don't have money, having to like shell out money for the church is a big deal. And like my aunt, there was one time she gave all her salary to the church, and she didn't have money for food. She comes to our house to eat, and that happened all the time there.
Wow. That's amazing. It's horrible, but yeah. Um, That's a phenomenon, and it's obviously different to Nigeria in some ways, but that happen. I mean, you look at these mega churches here in the U.S. and just, I agree. It's like people just they worship the leader. They become superstars. They're celebrities.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. When I heard someone say that the first time, and it was only a few months ago, I heard someone use that phrase, a cult of personality. I was like, wow, there's some serious truth to that. And that's a problem, and people don't realize it, that they're idolizing these pastors, and the pastors can do no wrong.
Yeah, and it hurts me because, you're giving all your money to this church, and the church is promising you prosperity and all these things. You have a shitty car. Your pastor is driving the best car in Nigeria. The chief pastor of the church has his private jets, has houses everywhere. You're still poor as hell and giving all your money to the church. Like, come on, people, logic, wake up.
Yeah. Wow. But they probably believe that they're showing faith to God by...
Yeah, and they call it sowing seed.
They're planting the seed now, that's the money, and then later God will bless them in some way.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, I started this podcast for the recently deconverted Christian, so when you think about that person, what encouragement or piece of guidance can you give them?
Don't be afraid to look, research, go on the internet, read books, like learn about other religions, find somebody to talk to, because I feel like that's important. Find a mentor, maybe an agnostic person, a friend, can be a professor, can be online. There are lots of people online who are willing to listen to you. Just talk to someone and do research. Because for me, doing research, trying to read beyond the Bible was strictly forbidden. Scratch that, ignore it, do research. That's the biggest advice I could give.
That's good advice. What are one or two resources that you would recommend for someone deconverting? And if you can think of specific resources for a Nigerian person, that's great. Otherwise, just one or two resources that you know of.
I think in general, it would be good to get a textbook of world religions, because you're going to see the similarities between all the religions. And one thing that really kept me Christian was the idea that, Christianity was so unique. No, it's just borrow a story, wash, repeat. So seeing that, just study the religions, still part of, getting knowledge. And other resources, I think maybe join an atheist group on Facebook. Just going back to find a community.
So the Nigerian Facebook page, how can people find that?
Just search on Facebook, Nigerian Atheist Agnostic Movement.
And then you guys, are you guys on Twitter as well?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Just Facebook, yeah.
Well, that is so awesome. I'm excited to hear about, how big the Nigerian atheist group has gotten. And is it you and your friend then that are the co-run that page?
Me, him, and I think two other guys.
Okay, and and are they based in the U.S. as well?
The two guys are based in Nigeria, but he is based in the U.S.
Neat.
So I guess two here, two there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's so exciting, and I hope that someone who's listening now who maybe is Nigerian will be able to find your group and connect with you guys and, make some new friends and get support. And, we both know how important that is to have community. And
yeah, we are here to help. We would love to have whoever, even if you're not Nigerian, would like to talk about getting away from those dark ages in your life. That's what I call it.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to thank you for a couple of things, but I want to thank you, one, for being a part of that group and being out there and being visible so that people can find other Nigerians and other that are atheist or agnostic, and also just for coming on the podcast today. I think I sent you a messenger or a Facebook message, and you were willing to do this, and I really enjoyed it and learned a lot, and there were so many interesting things about your experience, some really sad and some really happy and really hopeful. And so thank you for sharing all of that with me today.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for listening to Voices of Deconversion. Be sure to join us next time by subscribing to the podcast. If you'd like to learn more, check out our newsletter at vodpodcast.com.